Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here in Chicago. I'm here representing the World Council on City Data. I'm Patricia McCarney, the President and CEO of WCCD in Toronto. I'm also a professor and director of the Global Cities Institute at the University of Toronto. I'm here the title of the talk is Standardizing Data. We at the WCCD have a mandate to build high caliber data across cities, and that's cities across the world regardless of size of that city or even regardless of geographic region, regardless of income level, and also irregardless of the capacity of data as we get started. So a city like Los Angeles, for example, who has already cultivated a very strong culture of data, or a small city like Minna, Nigeria, who's also we're working with, who has just started to develop this culture of data in cities. We work with cities regardless of size, income, and capacity. I want to also tell you that we are really celebrating a global first at the WCCD. We have just published in 2014 the first international standard for city indicators for cities at the International Organization for Standardization, ISO. This standard is called ISO 37120, and this film will show you some of the first 20 cities that have just been testing it during 2015 and 2016, and we're now rolling it out to all cities globally.
The world is changing at light speed. Cities are growing and evolving, searching for innovative, intelligent ideas and alternative futures that determine the path forward in urban centers. Diverse cultures, geographies, and economies, with only one common language: data. What if we could find a comprehensive way to compare these diverse cities with a truly consistent platform for standard urban metrics, so that cities could share knowledge, guide smart and sustainable development and learning, measuring performance to vastly improve quality of life? This is the call of the World Council on City Data and ISO 37120, the first ever international standard for cities. We're at the epicenter of a worldwide effort to standardize urban metrics, a global hub for creative learning partnerships across cities, international organizations, corporate partners, and academia. Rural life is giving way to urban development. Cities are planning for resilience and for changing climates, learning from each other. Together, we're delivering the essential tools cities, business leaders, planners, designers, and professionals need to build more livable, sustainable, and prosperous urban centers, to foster innovation, to provide a clear method for defining and determining indicators that can help measure performance in a universal language, to drive sustainability, quality of life, and investment in cities worldwide. The World Council on City Data, created by cities, for cities.
So ISO 37120, as I mentioned, was published in 2014, and it's now being rolled out to cities around the globe. I'll just show you a few data points for the work we've been leading at the WCCD. And I also thought I should mention, given especially the last panel on resilience, we are now, by demand from the cities and national governments around the world, we are now developing a new standard called ISO 37123, which is indicators for resilient cities, and also by demand, another third standard, ISO 37122, indicators for smart cities. That movement of getting high caliber data with apples to apples data so that cities can talk to each other and cities can learn from each other. There's 100 indicators that we're starting with in 37120, and cities are beginning to report upwards of 90 indicators, in fact, so we're getting a really nice baseline of data, which I'll show you. The themes have been developed working with cities since 2008. The indicators in this data set of the 100 indicators across all of these themes are the usual suspects of what city leaders want to measure, we're measuring already, or need to measure. We believe that this data is empowering not only a culture of data within cities, but building a culture of innovation. Because as soon as you get apples to apples data, cities start to talk to each other and they start to learn from each other. And this has been happening on one by one with cities, basically emailing each other when they see the data on the open data portal. How did you get there? How did you do that? How can we use a predictive analytic tool to get to that by 2030, for example? So this kinds of discussion started actually a few months ago in Dubai when we brought all of our cities together in Dubai to actually talk data, which was an incredible thing to watch because it's the first time that it's high caliber comparable data that cities can actually connect and lessons start to travel city to city. We've been hearing about that on a few of the panels. These are just a few of our data points, which I'll just in the last few minutes show you. So we've just chosen a few of the high-level data points. So for London, for example, this is how Londoners get to work other than a personal automobile. This is a very high number for London. Amsterdam, connectivity, commercial flights. Boston, high number of new patents registered. That's a clear one. In Toronto, this is a very high number for the educated population, the higher ed degrees per 100,000 population. Los Angeles, how green is my city? Helsinki. So we measure green space and air quality, et cetera. How financially sound is my city? I know Mayor de Lille is here in Cape Town, and they're just about to be certified in the next month or so. Johannesburg, this is a really interesting number because both our cities in Nigeria and Johannesburg have quite a high women as percentage of total elected to city office. We didn't know this. And compared to when you graph it, compared to other cities, these are quite high numbers. Melbourne, I know the Lord Mayor is also here and will be speaking this afternoon. Melbourne is a member of the WCCD since the beginning as a foundation city. And this is kilometers of high capacity public transit in Melbourne, also a high number on the stage. Buenos Aires, who's also with us here in Chicago, annual number of public transit trips per capita. And Amman, I know the former mayor of Amman is here. We saw him at the hotel last evening. How sustainable is my city? Amman actually has been measuring greenhouse gases according to the Global Protocol for Cities for some time. So this is a really important part of our standard. This is when, if you go on the data portal, you can actually graph and then you can see the comparative. This is just an education one. This is higher ed degrees. So I thought it would be interesting for you to know when you go to the data portal, it's all open and you can start to see comparative benchmarking, et cetera. As I mentioned, we had a Dubai conference hosted by the Executive Council of Dubai in March with the WCCD. And at that conference, we had the cities signed a declaration around inclusive cities. So there was debate, should it be smart cities, should it be resilient cities? Inclusive seemed to be the goalpost at the city level with smart nations and then the sustainable planet. What we are now working on at the WCCD is to think about how data, actually city-level data, how it can start to support 4 key global agendas. I know in some of the panels over the last evening and also today, we're hearing this alignment of city-level data, provincial or state-level data, national-level data, and global level. So we work with a number of UN organizations, UNSD and UNISDR and others, where we're looking at how we can localize these agendas. We've heard quite a bit about localizing the Paris Accord to local levels to get cities more engaged in the COP agreement. But we also are working on looking at how to localize the Sustainable Development Goals. So WCCD is mapping that now. We're working with UNISDR on the resilience indicators. The Sendai framework, in fact, I was just at an ISO meeting in Berlin a few days ago, and UNISDR was there, and we're trying to align what they're calling the city report card for resilient cities with our standard. So this is the report that will be launched at the UN Secretary General's office meeting in July. This is a report that maps our data to the SDGs. And finally, we're also in response to cities in asking them, how would you like to use this data as we now start to have a really nice basic baseline of data? The first thing that cities have asked for is an investable cities index. And so we've looked at that and what should go into it, and safety, air quality. It's a broader set of parameters now where people think about where to invest and where to live and where to develop your startup, et cetera. Those are key questions that haven't always been on the radar of an investable city. Quite often it's more on the financial indicators. So this is quite a broad-based set of indicators from ISO 37120. And the data is not imputed. It's actual reported data, which is third-party verified. We have a firewall with auditors who actually certify the data before we ever put it up on the portal. So this is the first product coming out of this start that we're making on standardized data. Thank you very much.